Hello and namaste, my beautiful friends. I'm Jill Loftus of Nuit Astrology. Welcome to your planetary energy forecast for the week of April the 7th, 2025. I think this video will probably be a little grainy. I have had numerous issues with the microphone and my phone, so this is take 4. So thank you for your patience. This week, there are a lot of really beautiful flowing energies that we can take advantage of. There are also some tensions, of course. Now, I would definitely say this is going to be one of the more productive weeks of the month. So, if you have the opportunity to take advantage of things, even if it's just more of a letting go kind of week, this is a week to do it, right? Definitely not as tense as the end of April. Now, remember, we have this flowing synchronistic type of energy between Uranus, the planet of breakthroughs, freedom, rebellion, the higher octave of Mercury, and the internet, flowing gorgeously with Saturn, our planet of restriction, foundation, old age, time, limitations, and rules. Now, that Saturn in Pisces is also very close to the sign of Venus, how we love, what we value, what's important to us, the planet that rules money, and the earth herself. Now, they are really pretty much standing together, walking hand in hand all month. But during this time period, they are also co-present with the North Node, which is an amplifier, also in Pisces, and Mercury, which is also retrograde and in Pisces. Now, Mercury will pause in the sky and begin its forward motion on Monday, the 7th. And so we may powerfully feel what some of the things we've been reviewing or rethinking or repairing in the end of Pisces, how that's affected our mind, how we interact, we speak, or how we communicate. Could have a lot to do with that. There could also be just an overwhelming amount of energy there because of the amplification of the North Node, the consequential presence of Saturn, and of course, the loving, kind of absorbing energy of Venus, the deeply compassionate Venus in Pisces. Recall also that standing across the sky always from the North Node is the South Node, amplifying the opposing energy, which is Virgo. The Virgo symbol, the symbol of the servant, the one who is the healer or helper, the energy of idealism and perfectionism. Standing across the sky from all this, the Piscean dream, so to speak, all that watery, deep, emotive energy. And so we may find ourselves pivoting between this whole, I've got to be practical and analytical and fact-based, and then across the sky, it's like, but this is how I feel, and I'm feeling the pain of the world, the suffering. I'm feeling my own suffering. I'm feeling maybe even, Pisces is kind of 12th house, the suffering that's encoded into my DNA from my ancestry and from the past. So we have to find this balance between the creative and the reality, between what's the proper thing to do and what's the idealistic thing to do. We have to find a balance between them. Now, as we begin the week as well, we have a lovely beam of energy coming from Mars, moving forward in the sign of Cancer, still in its retrograde shadow, but it's repeating its movement through these degrees, but it's moving forward at least. It's sending lovely energy to all of these Pisces planets. Beautiful trine energy, flowing, gorgeous. And also sending a sweet little sextile over to Uranus and Taurus. So looking for the magical moments, looking for the messages that are hidden in symbolic language throughout the week, in the little promptings that we get, or the, I read this article. Oh, I had this dream. Oh, I ran into so-and-so who suggested I call so-and-so. Follow these things forward. Follow the threads. Follow the breadcrumbs, the clues. And also look at the symbolic events of the week. There's so much being kind of shown to us this week about how we're going to be moving forward once everything gets out of the retrograde shadows. Now, remember, Mercury pauses and begins to move forward on Monday, the 7th, but it doesn't get out of its shadow till the 26th of April. Mars gets out of its shadow on May the 2nd, and Venus actually pauses in the sky and begins to move forward this week as well, in conjunction with this full moon that we have on the 12th in Libra. She does not get out of her retrograde shadow until the middle of May. So keep all of those things in mind, even if you're sure that you are, certain that you have a resolution or an understanding this week. Give it the space, the latitude to become a fully formed idea or fully formed pathway forward in May, right? We still have more players. We still have more game pieces to be shown to us about how things are really going to be playing out over these next few months. Now, the same day that Mercury pauses and begins to move forward on the 7th, we also have a precise meeting of Saturn and Venus. Now, remember, anytime two planets meet, it's the slower moving planet that kind of has the upper hand here. It infuses its energy into the slower moving planet. So even though there is some lovely sticking power now to the Venusian things as Saturn is there can also be this sense of sadness or dread or melancholy or heaviness or responsibility that comes from the presence of Saturn. So if you're feeling some of that, be sure to be processing it well. Don't take it all so personally, right? Saturn is really there delivering hard lessons in order to help us to have a better future, to build our dream on something stable and secure. So try not to get overwhelmed in some of those emotions. This is definitely a week to be having a lovely mantra practice, playing beautiful music. This week I just started listening to Gregorian chant music, and that's been really, the uplifting Latin chanting, with the echoes of the church. Just, I don't know, that's been doing it for me this week. So do what works for you. Okay. And then next up on the 8th, we have the precise sextile between Venus and Uranus. Now remember, they're still all dancing around there. They're still all sending those beams. But it's kind of like when you have the degree and minute with precision, it creates a really, think of it as like playing a musical instrument, and the chords can feel a little blurry, but then all of a sudden there's a ding, there's a moment. It's like, So this could absolutely guide us forward in some weeks. So look for that on the 8th. On the 9th, that whole connection between Saturn and Venus and Mercury and the North Node actually gets a little bit closer. Everyone kind of snuggles in a little bit more. So this again could be very overwhelming. So stay grounded. Go across the sky to that Virgo nature and be like, all right, I'm going to have a little bit of a routine. I'm going to, lay down on the ground and do some breath work. I got to stay steady. I'm going to have a little bit of a schedule so I don't get lost in the waves of Pisces. Then we have our full moon on the 12th. Now, this is at 8:22 p.m. Eastern. Adjust for your time zone at 23 degrees of the sign of Libra. So Libra generally is the sign of partnership, of balance, of equity, of fairness. Now, this includes not just love relationships like a spouse, a lover, but also our business associates and people that we're in competition with, or even former lovers. So this is a wonderful full moon for cutting cords on old relationships, cutting cords on old ways of being in relationships. Perhaps you have some shadow Libra tendencies where you're a people pleaser, or you don't set good boundaries, or you're always willing to do more for people than they are willing to do for you, which leads to inequity and eventually unfairness. It's kind of like, think about a potter with a piece of clay on the wheel, right? And it's spinning and it's spinning, and it has to stay balanced and uniform. If at any point one side takes on more energy, then it throws the whole thing out of orbit, right? And so you might think that you can love them more, and you might think that you can do more, and eventually it will come into balance. But that's not really the way it works, right? Definitely there's ebbs and flows in relationship, but you cannot have a strong relationship built on inequity or injustice. It just doesn't work, right? You got to breathe out, you got to breathe in. There's got to be light, there's got to be dark. It all comes back to balance. So this is a wonderful full moon to let go of anything that keeps you from that. This is also could be a deeply cathartic, healing full moon, because standing across the sky with the sun is Chiron. Chiron is at 23 degrees of the sign of Aries as well. And so these two planets together, illuminated by the full moon, could really help us to see where we feel that chironic wound in the Aries part of our chart. Where do we feel rejected? Where do we not feel like we belong? Where do we feel that we have to do it alone? That there's no one who can really help us, or that partnership doesn't work for us, or, we don't deserve great love or great caring, kindness, compassion, all the beautiful things that can come from a healthy relationship. So this could be very healing. It also could highlight that wound. But again, it exposes it so that we get to understand it. We get to understand that part of ourselves and realize that if we continue to reinforce this idea that we don't need anyone else, or that we don't deserve anyone else, then we won't find anyone else. Okay? We have to believe and love ourselves in order to attract a healthy partnership or relationship. The world is really a reflection of your own mind and your own understanding. So dream a dream of beauty, of love, of harmony, and support. Another little caution flag goes up, though, right after this full moon. Of course, they continue to progress. Chiron's moving a little more slowly than the sun. So the sun will move on to 24 degrees. And at 25 degrees, we have Eris, the goddess of discord. She is the sister of Mars. And so this could bring some challenging, I see this as an argumentative energy, a suffering energy. And, with those three all clustered together very tightly, and then the sun eventually coming into conjunction with Eris, this could bring up a sense of argumentativeness or immaturity, which can be the shadow of Aries. And, think of Aries as this, wonderful energy of the warrior, the strong, youthful person, the optimist, right? Anything is possible, the athlete. But the shadow of it can be anger. And the root of anger is fear. And so as a young soul, right, that Aries energy gets afraid, and instead of wanting to expose itself as fearful, gets mad, gets angry, says rash things, does things, throws things. There's violence, there's harm. Beware of that shadow of Aries, and be aware of people who operate that way. Give them some space, step back, set a good boundary. Don't engage with those types of energies, especially at the end of the week and through the weekend while that's amplified. Really do try to, if anger is your go-to, try to respond with more courage and calmness. Move that energy if you feel it building up within you through vigorous exercise, or, passionately writing out your feelings and putting the letter into the fire instead of saying something that might cause harm in the long run. You have to get that energy out, right? It has to move, but you don't have to hurt anyone with it. So, other quick note, there are 3 days that there are pretty significant moon voids, the 8th, the 10th, and the 13th. So be sure to hop on the blog on my website to see when that is for your time zone. Moon voids are wonderful for creative work, but they're not so great for deep, important conversations, having a clear mind, or doing something that you want to stick or to have any staying power. So keep that in mind. Now, I have already recorded the Celtic cross for this week, so stick around for that. And I filmed separately the Isis Lotus Tarot spread, so I hope you'll look that up on YouTube. I already posted that, and check that out for the week. Thank you for your extreme patience. Hopefully I'll have my recording situation figured out by next week. Mercury. All right. I hope you have a wonderful week. Stay tuned for the Celtic cross. Hello, beautiful friends. Let's check out the Celtic cross on the full moon in Libra. This is for the week of April the 7th, 2025. So this full moon occurs on the 12th. And so what do we need to set our intentions to release for this full moon? We're reading for the collective. Okay, interesting. A card that's just kind of showing up is the Eight of Pentacles, which indicates this is a week of growth where we're gaining knowledge, we're gaining skills. So look at it that way. Okay, think about this also for the full moon. What have you learned? So it's about not only what you're letting go of, but what have you learned thus far? Okay, so that kind of popped out. So in the reading, we are Ten of Swords, kind of feeling like things did not exactly go according to plan. This could be relationships or partnerships that seem to have failed, seem unfulfilled. We may be having a sense of defeat or loss. This Ten of Swords, though, reminds us that it didn't work out because there's something better, and to remember that. Now, what's crossing us? Ten of Cups, our desire to create a wonderful home, to feel emotionally abundant, fulfilled, happiness. Wouldn't it be nice to be happy, yeah? Now, in the past, with our relationships, again, this is back to this full moon, we've taken a lot of responsibility. We've tended to things. We've been really feeling like we could do something in order to make it better. But in the future, the Hanging Man. Now, this is to remember that things don't just arise from nothing and fall into nothing, right? There's a buildup, there's a sense of construction here, but also waiting for the right timing. So you've seen those beautiful images, right? Of like the chrysalis and then the butterfly, and the larva transforming and then flying away, right? The Hanging Man is very much about that transformation, about being in a somewhat of an uncomfortable state, but knowing that we're here for a purpose. There's a reason. It is often equated also with Jesus's 40 days and 40 nights in the desert, which, by the way, 40 days and 40 nights is a Venus retrograde cycle. So this could even be related to the Venus, which stations direct on the same day as this full moon. Crowning thoughts. Well, we are looking to be successful. We really, whatever this relationship thing is that we're trying to let go of, it's really impeding us. We have to step into our power. And subconsciously, well, we've been feeling really limited. We've been feeling overwhelmed. We've been feeling exhausted, negative, lots of worries, shadowing, clouding the mind. Advice. So here's the Five of Pentacles. So part of this problem is that we don't believe that we are worthy to be admitted into the place where decisions are made, or the place of abundance. We feel in some way excluded. Like maybe we're the only one who doesn't get a fulfilling partnership. We're the only one that doesn't find the right romantic partner. We're not able to have what we want. The outside influence, judgment. We are making these decisions. It's up to you to decide that you can be entitled to the best and highest, that you are worthy of what you want, that you should be able to have wonderful relationships, balanced partnerships, that things should be fair and just, right? The Libra themes. Outside influence, the sun. So this could be an assertive energy. This could be us needing to really reconcile and come to realize who we are. And by realizing who we are, this can help us to better develop what we want. Outcome, Four of Pentacles. So there's something about this full moon where we don't need to share everything. We don't need to dump, I just get this image of taking your purse and dumping it out on the table, like, nasty, little bits of things, and, half a container of mints, and there's a pen, and there's a receipt, and there's like all this stuff that we don't necessarily need to have, like a purgative, I think is the better word, purgative moment here where we lay it all out. We have to decide where we're more reticent, we hold back our energy, and where we commit our energy. We have to understand that you can give too much, that you can, what's the saying about giving someone enough rope that they can hang themselves? Like, we can be too generous. There is such a thing. And so this full moon will help us to see where we need to let that go. Reader's fan. Think about the long-term repercussions of your relationships and how you operate within relationships. Seven of Pentacles. Because I think it's important for Libra energy to understand, because some people are like really good at boundaries in the office, but not good romantically. Like those energies are considered the same. The one parlays into the others, right? So if you start setting better boundaries at home, you will immediately start setting better boundaries at work. That said, it can go the other way. The Lovers. You deserve beautiful, wonderful love, a true partner. Also, Eight of Cups. Walk away from anything or anyone that is not worthy of your time, no matter how much you put into it. And, ooh, 2 more cards. Three of Pentacles. You've already started setting these boundaries. High Priestess. The divine feminine, the goddess energy is here to support you in this process. So, I hope this is a helpful way to kind of posture yourself as you look at this full moon and how to work with the energy. I wish you a marvelous week. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. See you next week. Bye.